Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today, we're going to be looking at a potential another tropical storm, or at least a high-end tropical depression. This is Invest 94L. Last night, the National Hurricane Center actually put up an area of concern in this little yellow area that you see on the screen right now. And right now, it is Invest 94L. They're currently doing a little bit more investigation on that and seeing if they're actually going to upgrade that to a tropical storm. Now, this is part of the same system that's been kind of just bring a bunch of rain to parts of North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia over the past couple of days. And it's just they've been getting about 3 to 5 inches of rain in many areas, and it's still going on, and they're still probably going to get another 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 or 5 inches of rain added onto that. So it is a very, very impactful system. And even if this does not become a tropical storm, it's still going to be more for the rainfall and the flooding. That's going to be mainly the biggest impact out of this. So here's your current National Weather Service page. They have flood watches up for parts of the Outer Banks and eastern parts of North Carolina. We have some red flag warnings up for parts of California, Arizona, Nevada, parts of Colorado, Utah, and then into parts of Wyoming, and then even touching a little bit of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. There we have some winter storm watches and winter weather advisories up for the higher elevations, parts of southwestern Montana and into parts of eastern Idaho there, where you actually are seeing probably about 6 to 10 inches of snowfall out of this little system that's diving down, and that's actually bringing with it some pretty cold air. You actually have some frost advisories in place for parts of Oregon and northern California in those higher elevations, and then we have some wind advisories for parts of the Dakotas and western Minnesota, and then scattered throughout parts of the southwestern United States. So that's it for the National Weather Service page. Now, here is what the Eastern Pacific is looking like right now. We actually have a 20% chance of development here, and then we also have another area in the Atlantic, which I'll show you in just one second. But we have a 20% chance. This actually was put up, I believe, this morning. If not, it was done late last night after I went to bed. But we have a 20% chance over the next 5 days of seeing formation of this, and this is actually what yesterday's video was about. We have this line of thunderstorms that are just kind of moving throughout this area just west of Central America, and they're spanning all the way from Central America to about Hawaii. And it's a very long band of thunderstorms that could lead to some potential tropical storms or tropical entities out of them. Now, here's what the Atlantic currently is like, and we actually have this very, very small area where we actually have a 10% chance within the next 48 hours and a 5 or a 10% chance within the next 5 days. Now, this is more impactful because the Eastern Pacific here, this really is just impacting parts of the ocean. So really nobody's living, of course, out on the ocean. But this Invest 94L is actually impacting parts of South Carolina and North Carolina, and it'll track further north into parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky there. So here is where it currently is sitting, and it's actually off the shore of South Carolina. And this is as of earlier this morning, so this is a bit outdated, but this is the most recent one that we could find. Now, here is your current GEPS storm tracks. Now, this is your Canadian model. There's not too many models actually forecasting for this because it is such a new system, and it's something that really caught everybody off guard. And we've actually seen this before. We actually saw a system pretty much exactly like this, but a little bit faster. And that was, I believe, the B storm. Now, I can't remember the exact name, but it basically formed off of South Carolina, and within an hour is already making landfall. So that was one of those faster moving systems, and this is kind of like that. It's going to be over the next 24 hours. It's going to be making landfall on the South Carolina North Carolina border, and then moving further to the north. Now, the GEFS is not doing their ensemble runs for this just yet, but potentially they may do it later. Now, here is your model intensity guidance from this, and you see one or two of these models actually bring it to tropical storm force status. So we actually have 3 out of the 4 models that are actually forecasting for this. I bet we're gonna have a couple more join on as we get further on in time. But we have 3 out of the 4 models actually showing a weak tropical storm. So just hitting 34 knots or about 38 miles per hour. One of them keeping it just below that with a very, very high end tropical depression. So we have about a 75% chance from these models of getting a tropical storm here. So here is actually your infrared loop. This is showing you how cold your cloud tops are, and the colder they are, the higher they're rising, which means the more intense those thunderstorms are, and the more intense this storm is. And you see, this is where your center of circulation is, right around here. And you see, we have most of the convection actually on the eastern side of this. So we actually have a much stronger system on the eastern side of this than the western side of this. And that's what we tend to see with these subtropical systems, where you usually have the most intense area on the eastern side of it instead of actually on kind of on all sides there. So here is your forecasted precipitation from the European model, and this is of course, the European model. This is not the ensemble model. This is just a single model run. We'll also show you the GFS model in just a little bit. So you see, it's starting to make impact with parts of North and South Carolina within the next couple of hours, within the next about 12 or so hours. So this would be by late tonight, and it's really having some very, very large impacts on, especially North Carolina there, seeing very, very, very heavy rainfall in those darker greens. That's indicating those thunderstorms and those very, very heavy pockets of rain. Now, this would be by early on Wednesday morning, and we're starting to see this rain start to lighten up, but it's getting a bit more broad. Now we have your rain moving into parts of Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and even into parts of Maryland and Delaware there. And then as we continue here, it starts to kind of just broaden out. And when these systems start to get wider, it's harder for them to actually develop. So that actually is going to weaken the system. The fact that this is getting larger and larger, especially because it's on land, it really can't intensify. Now, something that's going to really weaken the system, or help it kind of stick around, but it's not gonna help it kind of strengthen, is that we have this ridge of high pressure that's over parts of the eastern United States, and this is really helping suppress the system further to the south. And that's actually why your low pressure system was just kind of sitting here for the past few days. It cannot move further out to the east because of this dome of high pressure, which kind of digs down past it. So it has to wait for this to kind of move along and pick it up with it, and that's when it'll finally start to move offshore. So that's what's really having this stick around for a very, very, very long time. Now, here is your total rainfall within the next about 2 days or so, and we'll move this out a little bit longer. And you see, we have about 2 to about 5 inches of rainfall, and some isolated and locally heavier amounts are definitely possible. On average, it's going to be about 2.5 inches of rainfall, but we do again have some pockets where you're potentially seeing up to half a foot of additional rainfall onto what you've already had, which you already had quite a bit, about 3 inches, just from yesterday and a couple days ago, with some more rainfall that you saw. So you guys have been really getting quite a bit of rainfall down in the Carolinas and into Virginia there. So here is your wind gust forecast, and the European model wants to bring this to a very, very high-end tropical depression, but it's not reaching that threshold of a tropical storm, which would be when it gets into the lighter yellows here. But I think it's probably going to be at least a high-end tropical depression. Low end tropical storm is definitely likely, but even if it does reach tropical storm status, it's really not going to do too much, because most of these impacts are not going to be because of winds, especially if you live a little bit further inland. It's not going to be the winds that are really the big issue. It's going to be mainly the rainfall here. So your sustained winds, especially in the Outer Banks, are going to be right around 10 to 20 miles per hour, with some heavier wind gusts of probably about 30 or even 35 miles per hour here. And then those winds start to die out as this system starts to broaden. Now, here is your wind gust forecast from this, and you see most of the Carolinas and into Virginia and even down into Georgia, you're probably going to see wind gusts throughout this entire area of about 30 miles per hour, and potentially even higher, and even some tropical storm force wind gusts indicated, and some patchy areas off the shore of the Carolinas and Virginia, and some tropical storm force wind speeds even as you get further and further inland. So a tropical storm, it'll be a tropical storm for maybe about an hour or two. It won't really stay a tropical storm for too much longer, and it'll probably go back down to a tropical depression if this does even get tropical storm status. Now, here's what the GFS is actually showing, and it has a pretty similar solution here. Now, it has heavy rainfalls throughout, mainly centered over North Carolina, and the GFS has it more centered over North Carolina and less rainfall throughout Virginia and South Carolina. It moves this further to the north within the next about 30 hours or so, and that's when you start to see your heavier rainfalls move northward. Now, here is what the GFS is showing in terms of its sustained wind speeds, and you see the GFS actually wants to bring it to right around, again, high-end tropical depression, if not getting to a low-end tropical storm there, with wind gusts or wind speeds, sustained wind speeds of about 25 knots or so, which is about 30 miles per hour. So if you get a couple more miles per hour wind speeds, if they go up just a little bit than what is forecasted, then you have a tropical storm, and that will be your fourth named storm of the season for the Atlantic, and it's only June 16th here, so we're only 16 days into the actual hurricane season, and this is usually the quieter time of the hurricane season. Just wait until we get to August, September, maybe even lingering into October and November. That's when I really think it's going to be the height of this hurricane season. That's when I really think it's going to be back to back to back hurricanes there, and maybe this will even come close to the 2005 hurricane season, unfortunately, because of how favorable these conditions are going to be. We have these very warm sea surface temperatures that are continually rising. Instead of having those cooler temperatures off the shore of the East Coast, we actually are starting to see warmer than normal temperatures off the East Coast, and you had those colder than normal temperatures due to that cold spring, but now those temperatures are starting to rise, and I actually think that might bring some even stronger storms. So I'll definitely be keeping you updated if we do see any more storms or any updates with this storm. And potentially, if this system in the Eastern Pacific does start to develop a little bit more, I might make another video on that area of interest. Now, that is going to end it for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.